Hi, everyone. This week we talk about job search portfolios, and this is something that I'm very, very passionate about. Normally, we would spend quite a bit of class time going over the different parts of a portfolio, as well as talking about each of the nuances that are important to help you get your job. And usually I share some experiences from previous interviews that I've sat on as far as being the interviewer. Just to tell you that we're all human. But to start, I've already looked at your resumes for those of you that submitted them earlier in the term. And I thought I would just start and talk a little bit about the resume, and then we'll talk about the cover letter. So the resume basically should be a picture of you. So what's on that paper, I should be able to see you without seeing your face. Of course, some people do put their pictures on their resumes. I'm not sure that I would necessarily do that. And I'm not sure I'd recommend it at this point. But in any event, there are some components as an administrative professional that you would want to include on that resume. So basically the parts that you need would be your name area. And I noticed that on some of your resumes, some of you left your address off, and that is perfectly acceptable. Some of the new material on resume creation states that it's not imperative to put your address on there because your email will be your correspondence probably at this beginning stage. And when you fill out your paperwork, then you will supply your actual address to them. But you want your name to be, very evident. So make it larger than your address. Make sure, or your email address, make sure you have a contact phone, and whichever you're using for either of those. So your email, let's make sure it's professional. Don't have an email that says, want to have fun at hotmail.com or something like that. I know that sounds a little bit corny, but there are people who don't think about those things. Also, for your telephone, make sure that your voice recording for voicemail is professional in nature, right? I used to have a relative who had the play the music thing. Would play a song while we were waiting to get to their inbox. And I didn't think the song necessarily was necessarily professional. So just think of those things because you are trying to do something that could change your life. And so you want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row, as they say. So the name area usually goes at the top of the page. And then, how you set up your resume is totally your choice. I am a proponent of bullets, but I don't like a ton of bullets. I don't like everything to be bulleted, but that's a personal choice. So a lot of the things that we'll talk about really are your choice. So after the name area, you have a choice on some of the naming for the sections, but you definitely want to have a strengths or a skills section. When my son was in college, his career counselor suggested that he use professional strengths instead of skills. And I thought that was a great phrase to really emphasize what you're offering. Again, totally up to you. I've seen skills and abilities, professional work habits, that you can use whatever you'd like. But my son's was professional strengths, and I like that one. But you need in that area to list everything that would make you a prospective employee of value. So obviously computer application software is very important. Make sure that you're speaking about it with the correct branding. So if you're going to use the naming of the software, such as Word and Excel and PowerPoint, don't mix it up with spreadsheets or presentations, because the name of the software itself is fine. Make sure you list everything. Some of you have just taken an Acrobat class, and so you want to list that you're familiar with Acrobat. Those of you that have MOS certifications, you need to list it somewhere on your resume. It can be here. It could be in a let's say extracurricular activities and awards or honors and awards section. It's totally up to you, but it needs to be somewhere. The other thing that you'll want to list on your resume is your LinkedIn address, so that they can find your profile easily, because we've worked on that to update. Some of you need to massage that profile a little bit and have more content. But your LinkedIn should also show your Microsoft Office Specialist Award or badge that you received. So make sure you go back and claim that for any courses that or any exams you've already passed, or if you're doing one currently in one of your courses, because if you're in intermediate word processing now, they are just starting with that a process, as is beginning word processing. What else? Let's see. So we have a skills area of some sort. You need to have some type of experience area that lists anything where you've worked or had a position of responsibility. So I have a few students who always tell me, well, I really haven't worked anywhere. Well, the odds are you've done something somewhere. You just have to think about it and decide that it's a value enough to put on your resume. Babysitting is fine. Dog watching. If that's what you've done, then list it. Fast foods, it's fine. There is nothing wrong with previous work history, not in the administrative area. You just wanted to show that you are dependable and that responsible. So obviously, if you worked there for a longer period of time, then you weren't fired and you provided support for that organization. So make sure that you have the company and the dates appropriately. And I've made those comments on your resume that you turned in already. And then the other area is education. So now the order in which you put these three depends on what you feel is of most benefit to you. Because remember that when someone reads a resume, they don't spend a lot of time on it. So they'll start from the top and they'll move down the page. So if you want your education to be the most important, then you're going to put that before the work experience or possibly even the skills area. Totally up to you in the order that you put them. But within those areas, make sure that you put them with most recent first. So if your most recent job should be the one that's first in that area, and then to your oldest job. Same thing with your education, except that I did tell quite a few of you to take your high school off because now you're in college and high school doesn't necessarily have bearing. Your applications will also ask if you have high school history, so you're going to have an opportunity to list that anyway. A high school graduation doesn't necessarily get you the job. College and previous work experience are more likely to enhance the probability of you getting an interview. And that's really what your resume is for, is to get you in the door for the interview. So with that said, put everything on there that you'd like. On my resume, I also would, I put like other activities, just something like that, because I have a lot of outside organizations that I support as a volunteer. So when my kids were younger, it, was PTSA, or Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or my local church. And I put them on there because I felt that made me a well-rounded employee. We just had an advisory committee with Apple, with an Apple representative there, and he said that they look for that community involvement more so sometimes than the degree. So don't be ashamed to put anything that you're a member of, as long as it's obvious, something that would show your worth. Let's just put it that way. So the resume hopefully gets you in the door. Now, your resume will never be sent anywhere without a cover letter. And with today's new electronic technology, depends on how they have you apply. If you go to a portal, such as EdJoin, if you want to work at a school site, you're going to have to upload a letter of interest, or what we commonly say, a cover letter, as well as your resume and other supporting documents. If it's somebody that you find on a website and they say email your resume, then the body of the email probably should be the body of your cover letter, or you could send it as an attachment as well. That's really up to you. I would think that depending on where the email is going, if it's going to a person, I might put that cover letter in the body, and also maybe attach it. I mean, it's a little overkill, but at the same time, I'd rather have it as a resource if that email gets, those attachments get printed, and yet the email doesn't. So you don't want to take that chance. But the cover letter is our next topic. So in this module, I've given you an example, and there's tons of web resources for these tools that we're talking about this week. Use them, right? It's good to lay them out. Your textbook also has some good examples. So look at a variety of them to get a feel of how you can approach these different documents, and proofread. one of the things that always happens when I'm on an interviewing committee, which most of you know, is I have an eye for detail. And so I will often see things that are misspelled, that the dates are incorrect, they're not consistent. So they start the job after they've ended it or something like that. And that causes the applicant to lose points for most of us on that panel. So you want to make sure that you've, checked every detail. Now, the cover letter itself, usually 3 paragraphs in a letter style of your choice. Full block is what I'd recommend because it's the easiest. And then you're going to write that letter to an individual, if at all possible. If you don't know the individual, you're going to write it to the committee, the hiring committee. Typically, most organizations have a human resources director or a director of human resources, or I can't think of any other terms right at the moment. But if you don't know the name, use the title, right? And then address the letter, Dear Director of Human Resources, or Dear Administrative Assistant Hiring Committee. Okay, just use something like that rather than Dear Sir or Madam or Ladies and Gentlemen. It just doesn't sound personable. Then you have 3 paragraphs. So the first paragraph, you state the job for which you're applying, where you heard about it. It's usually about 2 sentences in length. Try to avoid starting with I, because all this letter is about you. You're going to talk about yourself in the next paragraph, and so you don't want to start too heavily on yourself in this paragraph. So you can state where you heard about the job opening, whether through a person, a website, your choice. And then second paragraph is where you're going to state what you have to offer them in relationship to the job. So look at the job announcement. A lot of companies use key term phrasing when they do applicant searches. So your documents may be uploaded to a web server, and then they use this program that will look for keywords. And the keywords are those that were in the original job description, because they want to see if you've talked about them. So that's where your resume and your cover letter need to address those skills and qualities they're requesting. So in that central paragraph here of the cover letter, address what you have to offer them for that particular job. Okay, and don't just say, as can be seen on my resume. Just say, I have these qualities that would fulfill the responsibilities for this position. And again, look at some examples on phrasing, because that you don't want it to be too choppy as well. And then the third paragraph asks for action, right? I look forward to meeting with you regarding my opportunity to fill the position of as administrative assistant at your company. Right? And then anything else. Don't end the letter with thank you, right? Just by itself, that's not a sentence. That's just a statement. So you can incorporate that into a sentence if you want to. And then you're going to leave room for a signature. You're going to probably send a PDF of these documents rather than a Word document. And so on your phone, most of you can sign documents or sign PDFs. So I would suggest, rather than print it, sign it, and then upload it, that you attempt that process on your phone, or if you have a laptop that has a touch pen or a touch screen, you can do it there too. But sign your document with a traditional signature. And then below your name should be enclosure, because remember, the cover letter always goes with the resume. Oh, and one last thing on the resume, which I didn't address. You need to have references, but those references don't have to be listed on your resume. So what you should do is have a second page to your resume, same style of font, same heading as your resume, and then say references for your name, or actually just references, because your name's going to be at the top, forget that. And then references, and then list your references going vertically down the page. And then that page would be one of those other documents you typically submit in the application process. Or if you're not given the opportunity to present that through the online application process, then you would take it with you to the interview and offer it with several copies for your panel if you were interviewing. Okay, so that's basically just a quick overview of resumes and cover letters. Again, I think maybe what I'll do is hold a Zoom at some point, maybe next week, once we've had an opportunity to go through this process, and we can talk further about it. If you think that you would rather have it this week, then let me know that. And we can definitely hold a Zoom a couple times and just chat about, different things that you may be wanting to question. Okay? So good luck. And there's more to come on other documents.